Thank you.
You're welcome, Carla.
Is everybody in yet?
Looks like we can begin, Carla, whenever you are ready.
Okay, Russ, thanks so much. And hello and welcome to the Federal Government Distance Learning Association's webinar series. I'm Carla Lane, FGDLA's Vice President for the Higher Education Sector and the moderator for today's webinar. FGDLA is a nonprofit professional association formed to promote the development and the application of distance learning in the federal government. We actively foster collaboration and understanding among those involved in leveraging technology and instructional media in support of the education and the training needs of the federal government. Our membership is derived primarily from individuals who are employed by the agencies within the federal government. We invite you to join with us in this exciting field. Our web address is fgdla.us. For upcoming events on August 10th, Dr. Jonathan Peters will focus on how to make gamification work for learning. On October 19th, we'll have a 2-hour micro-learning workshop by Kelly Barrett of the IRS. On November 16th, Sadney Wagner will discuss distance learning and instructional strategies by the Defense Language Institute's Foreign Language Center. And on December 14th, Dr. Melissa Dickman will hold a 2-hour workshop on helping subject matter experts create strong courses when they have little to no background as an instructional designer. We are so proud that Zoom is our major sponsor of FGDLA and has been instrumental in helping us present the webinars. Russ and Zoom, we want to thank you. Russ, what have you got to say today?
Carla, I say thank you, number one. And you know, was looking at the agenda for October, and I can see it's being led by the Internal Revenue Service. Are they going to give us some tax tips during that session? I hope so, because if so, I'm going to be there for sure.
Oh, that's great. Well, we thank you for your sponsorship and for Zoom. Thank you so much, Russ.
You're so welcome, Carla. Thank you for having us.
Okay. And today's topic is the Marine Corps e-learning ecosystem. Our speakers are Erika Jacobs and Larry Smith. Both are administrators at the Marine Corps University College of Distance Education and Training, which is responsible for online and distance training and education programs for the Marine Corps. Erika is the Capability Support Branch Head. Larry is both the Marine Corps University Director of Educational Technology and the College of Distance Education and Training Technical Director. Erika and Larry, welcome. And we're so glad to have you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. So I'm going to kick things off, then I'm going to turn things over to Erika. So Erika, if you will, we're going to talk about what our ecosystem concept is and how we got to where we are, what solutions that we came up with. Erika is going to cover the components, the supporting efforts. We're going to talk a little bit about challenges and future development, and then based upon questions, we can provide any type of demonstration that the viewers would like to see. So why an ecosystem? Several years ago, we sent some majors out to meet with the entire Marine Corps, really, to figure out what was missing within our training and education system. So we had an old system that was designed and built to deliver just asynchronous training. So you log in, you do your annual training, it logs all your interactions, score based, and then that was it. But Marines wanted more. There were disparate systems out there, some for formal schools. Some schools didn't have anything. It's expensive when you start getting into multiples and multiples of different type of training and education support systems. So we looked at an ecosystem, and here's the definition of an ecosystem. Bottom line, is a one-stop shop that students and instructors can get in to both create and access training and education content. So we had to present this up the chain of command, and here was our problem statement. There was no enterprise digitally based system that supported all of the creation, distribution, access, logging of digital content. So as we were the service advocates, we were really the Marine Corps program of record to provide these, the initial capability, we said we can take what we have and we can expand it from there. And about the time where we kind of figured out the direction we wanted to go, if you're familiar with the Advanced Distributed Learning Collab, they started to develop the total learning architecture concept. So they kind of married up nice as far as what we saw as a problem and requirement with another organization's concept of how to deliver training and education content when it was needed. So I'm going to cover a couple of issues and solutions that we came up with as we went down the path of developing our ecosystem. So we had to modernize our platform. The initial platform was very basic. We went from a long time ago, we used the Think learning management system, and we modified it to the point where because of security requirements kept increasing and changing, we modified Think to where it can no longer accept any upgrades from Think itself. So we had to go to a modular system where it was Rust C Swarm Engine, Microsoft SQL, and question mark perception at the time, and some .NET stuff to integrate it all together. So the modular concept really worked well for us because we always felt like if there was a best of breed product out there that was better than what we had, we could remove one component and put another component back in without losing all our capability all at once. So looking forward towards an ecosystem, we wanted to bring several systems into the one-stop shop that I was talking about, but we needed a larger kind of umbrella content management system, and not necessarily learning content so much as digital asset content, like forms or digital assets like pictures, recording, things like that. So as we went forward, one of the things we also noticed was that whenever you get into a governmental development cycle, we were using waterfall at the time. It took a lot of time to make any changes. And the first thing that came to my mind when I started thinking about this was we had a button that had a misspelling in it, and it took a 6-month development cycle to go in and change that button verbiage. So we wanted to have a little bit more control of the overall aesthetics of the page as we went forward. And then we wanted the ability to put everything under the umbrella, integrated into a modern face, so that it looked better than what we had. Nothing against SharePoint, but it was very SharePoint-esque what we had before we transitioned. So we went out, looked at content management systems, and we selected Adobe Experience Manager. Adobe Experience Manager has worked very well for us in the fact that it's very configurable, very tailorable. We can publish things, we can change things. So it doesn't take the IT folks out of the picture, but it lets them focus on the IT things they need to, while we can focus on the presentation. Next slide, please. So we also noticed that my organization, the College of Distance Education and Training, is responsible for distance learning seminars. So we also felt that we needed some sort of tool that we could do virtual classrooms with. So we found Adobe Connect so that we could provide synchronous virtual classes as required. We didn't have anything like that. So if anything happened to where we had to shut the base down or we couldn't get to a classroom, like in the pandemic, we needed the ability to do that. So Adobe Connect really did a lot for us as far as providing a synchronous capability. Additionally, with Adobe Connect, we found that we could run very large seminars of either 500 or 1,000 people for various events. So we found it to be a very big win. Interestingly, that we had just gotten the contract in place for Adobe Connect and had a very small user base when we were all told to go home for COVID. So there was a bit of forcing function for adoption of Adobe Connect. Next slide, please. Moodle. So we started out with Blackboard a while ago, and through a couple of iterations, we settled on Moodle. So we use it as our instructor-led learning management system. So we have found it to be very, very effective as far as both running seminars or virtual sessions. It's open source, it's FedRAMP approved. We self-host it ourselves in our own architecture, but we found it to be very, very, very capable. I know there's a lot of discussion about, well, you know, Canvas is better, Blackboard's better. I really think that it's based upon how an instructor sets up and uses the tool on what tool is best. So that's my opinion. Marinet Video Services. Yeah, so we had a colonel who was leaving the Pentagon and going out to take a command in California, and they wanted a way, or he wanted a way to where his Marines, his users, could get in, take a video of something and post it as user-generated content. YouTube is not exactly the best place to be putting all that stuff, so we said, okay, we want to be able to provide that capability for you. So we built Marinet Video Services from the ground up using the open source tool FFmpeg. So the big deal about this was the first foray for us into user-generated content. So it was content, you know, taken or created by an individual that was put into the system. So to make people a little bit more comfortable, people being commanders more comfortable, we built in a moderation process. So a commander requests a channel for his or her organization, and then he or she assigns others that could view and approve the content. So if I'm a Marine assigned to an organization, the system knows what organization I'm in. I take my video and I post it, and then it's reviewed before it ever goes live. So it's moderated so that classified information is going out, improper procedures aren't being published, things like that. And we've seen a great deal of success with this because we've also built it to where it's accessible on mobile devices, and that's personal mobile devices, because the thought is that with the way a lot of folks are, particularly younger folks, are learning today, video is king. So we figured that they need to be able to get to training when they need it. Question mark. We started out with question mark perception, and it's been very good for us, but the perception tool was kind of sundown, and it was a good tool for us, but it required us to create a question bank, a question mark live, which would belong to question mark, download the question bank, move it over and upload it. So we've gone to question mark on-prem, which is on-premise, and we run it in our architecture. It provides a collaborative assessment and survey tool with some very robust reporting capabilities. And then when people make changes to the assessment, be it poor question, improper question, add question, whatever, there's a change log. So you can have different versions of whatever assessment's being provided. It's cloud-based. Like I said, it also provides for the creation of a question bank within our architecture and directly publish over. So we're not having to download and save and upload and things like that. It streamlines the process, making it easier for instructors, organizations to create their content. Communities, this is our newest tool. So social media is a big deal for particularly our younger folks out there, and sometimes older folks too. But we found that there's a lot of sharing and abilities that were not being touched with our current system. So instead of allowing you to use Facebook, Twitter, things like that, we looked to a tool called Variant Communities. And if you play golf and you're familiar with Titleist equipment, it's the same thing they use to create their communities within their website. So it's very robust: forums, wikis, questions, polls. So similar to a video channel, an organization can request a community, and then they set up and run their community the way they want to run it. So it's kind of our air quotes here, their social learning community for their community of interest. And I'm going to turn it over to Erika, and she's going to talk about our current components that we have in the system.
Thanks, Larry. Yep, so as Larry mentioned, our e-learning ecosystem is a system of multiple application platforms for learning management systems, providing digital learning environments for support creation and distribution, tracking of digital content, as well as monitoring of student performance. The digital content with interactive videos and audio and virtuals, it's all stored from a single access point for all Marine learners, and it's built on our Amazon GovCloud using Adobe Experience Manager. So as you see with this wheel, these are all the different components that we'll touch on, but it's all based off of Adobe Experience Manager. We tie in with digital forms for workflows. So if somebody's requesting accounts or access, we've talked about how Marines can stand up their own channel, their own folder system, and that's all done through this Adobe Experience Manager. And it's allowed us to do that rapid configuration, that modernizing of our front end. Self-paced courses. So this is what Marines used to know as MarineNet. It was legacy MarineNet. This is where all our self-paced, those IMI, asynchronous self-paced courses, that's where they exist, and they're still there. This is something, one piece that we're looking to still upgrade, just to become a little more updated, because it was from the very beginning, built from the ground up. But right now we leverage question mark inside here, inside of our self-paced, to do our assessments. Adobe Connect. So Adobe Connect is an industry leader when it comes to educational virtual learning. We use COSO Cloud as our FedRAMP approved hosting. So it's hosted through COSO Cloud, and they're with support with Involved Media. And our virtual classrooms have allowed us to, as Larry had said, they came at perfect time, right when a pandemic was hitting, and it really was a forcing function. It hadn't really been, we were just getting, I think it wouldn't have unfolded as quickly as it did, except for we suddenly had to have this separation, that it would still, the instruction still had to continue. So we had the ability to host classes inside of small meeting rooms, up to 100. And then we also had this ability to do larger virtual sessions for seminars that can host up to 500 or 1,000, which was helpful when it comes to annual training, where it would normally take place in an auditorium. We couldn't all meet in an auditorium, had to be social distance. So this came in at good timing. We appreciate the ability to record. So if somebody couldn't get in, if there were issues, it was still available. And then we were able to record and then also host it then inside of our NVS, our video service. We went through as Adobe Connect was upgraded from a Flash version to HTML5. So it was a little bit of a rough transition for us, because that change happened with them as we were just learning it. We had hit a couple of challenges when it came to that. Flash going away, I think, was just a challenge in a lot of different areas, but so it was a challenge because it came at this time when we were just stepping it up. And on top of the fact that we're dealing with government networks, which also have restrictions, additional restrictions. So as far as like accessing a desktop app, can't be downloaded onto our government computers without going through processes. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but this still worked for us because we do have access through browser versions. Instructor-led courses, as Larry mentioned, we use Moodle, and it's open source, which has allowed us to use it, and it's self-hosted, so it's allowed us to use it as we need. We can bring in supported plugins as we see fit. So we look to our community to ask our user community what they want. in there, and they can look and see like, oh, we want the ability to do this, and we can bring those plugins in and use them, incorporate them into our system as needed. The ability to create and edit courses. There's building quizzes. We're also able to tie in with question mark for our instructor led as well. We're also able to put links for our Adobe Connect meeting rooms. So Moodle has been very helpful for us in delivering asynchronous as well as synchronous education to our distance education programs. So we've got distance education programs for officers and enlisted, but then also our formal schools are now jumping in. Whereas before, when Larry had mentioned we initially had just Blackboard, it was primarily just for our College of Distance Education and Training formal courses. And a lot of our other formal schools didn't have an LMS, or if they did, it was self-host, or they were procuring on their own or managing on their own. Here, we've been able to put it all together, and we have a structured organization that can reach all of those formal schools within the Marine Corps. MVS, our video services, MarineNet video services. This was a huge, I think, addition when this was stood up, because users on our MXN network, our Marine Corps Enterprise Network, were not able to access YouTube videos. So if someone wanted to create a training video, how to do something, because they weren't meeting in person, they posted up on YouTube, but you couldn't access it on your government computer. This kind of helped out with that, because they were able to come through our ecosystem, access a channel that was hosted, and as Larry mentioned, making approved videos, the videos that have gone through the vetting process. So we know that it's proper, we know that it's appropriate, we know that they took the right measures to, when they were recording the video, that it's accurate methods. We also have enhanced it to allow playlists to be created. We've it also included a podcast ability, so people can follow, they can subscribe, they can rate them, and that's good because then we get feedback, and it's all user-generated content. So I think it's really good when we've got a lot of intelligent Marines out there that can help each other learn. It's kind of like when students can learn best from other students. Along the same lines here, as long as that's been vetted, that's proper, that this content that's out there can really reach a lot of people. And then on top of that, that it's mobile friendly, they can access it on a mobile device, a personal device, has really made the education more reachable. We've been able to get out to everybody, wherever they're at, and then they can, as a personal playlist, and podcast creations through our RSS feed. Our ecosystem library, it was developed very similar to the same way that we do our MVS, MarineNet Video Services, that an organization could request their own folder structure, and this kind of gave them a place to upload their content. So where the other one where MVS focused on video and audio, this focuses on documents. And a lot of times we were hearing from our users that they wanted the ability to associate a document with the video. So if they were doing a seminar that had an associating PowerPoint that they wanted the users to be able to view, we set this up so that they can link that PowerPoint to associate with the video that the individual is watching. So it kind of like support documents. And again, just like the videos, we have the rating system. We have the ability to make these, just like the MVS you can make the channels public or private. Public as in available to anyone within the ecosystem, or private as in who has access to it. You have to approve that individually. We're able to do that by the unit level as well. So if they hold a particular ROC, wherever their unit's located, they would have access to those videos, or in this case, the folders. So CUI content, that's the controlled info. If we we allow them to access. So that's what used to be the FOUO. You can access it, but you have to have your CAC card. So they have to be able to authenticate into the system, proving who they are before they can view that particular content. And then that content's approved for those with the CAC. And the non-CAC, the non-CUI content is also downloadable. So people can pull it down if they have access to it, and then use it for future use as well. Communities, as Larry mentioned, this was our newest. It actually just got added, what was it, 2 months, a month and a half ago, maybe? It's great, just standing it up. So it's the ability to do that social communicating, that social learning, because the learning can happen socially. Right? We all know that, right? And also just being able to reach that community of interest and sharing ideas and get the thinking going. So social platform, accessible to anyone who has our ecosystem access. So if they have an account within the ecosystem, and then the users or the community can, or an organization within the Marine Corps can set up their own community and then post their own information. So it's a good way to reach out to everybody, as opposed to just sending out mass emails. They can invite people to join their community and then share announcements, share news, have a blog. They can share content, and it can link to other pieces within our ecosystem too. I set up one for our virtual learning environment where I link out to some of the tutorial videos that we've created, and I link out to some of the PDF tutorials that we have. There's a calendar feature in there that we can talk about training sessions that have coming up. And then we can moderate registration through that as well for those events. It's a huge addition to our ecosystem, but again, pretty new, so it's just getting started. The ability to chat and submit ideas directly to a user community, just get that thinking going, and sharing ideas and improving ways to improve. Our last component is our assessments and surveys, and that's through on-prem. And it has this allows us to not only send out these assessments and these surveys, but then the ability to pull them down and take a look at the analytics associated with them. You can break it down by question, so we can look at was this a valid question? Was the topic covered effectively? We get feedback on how well students performed on the assessments, and then it has a survey capability as well. And it is run on a software as a service model. We can't just put these pieces out there without providing ongoing support. So our ongoing support, we do monthly live Q&As. So for 30 minutes, the first Monday of every month, we offer a live Q&A, and we invite anybody who's part of our ecosystem to come to that. And that gives them the opportunity to ask questions, maybe present more ideas. I mean, I think that's also when our community's feature starts to evolve, we'll get ideas from there too, but that's how we improve, and we look to improve and continue to enhance our ecosystem. This year, we'll be doing our second annual virtual e-learning ecosystem workshop, and that'll be in September. And what we're trying to do there is provide an opportunity to do some keynote presentations about the ecosystem, but then also provide some in-depth tutorials to a larger user base, because there's a lot of features out there. And yes, we can create video tutorials and we can create PDF tutorials and things for people to look over, but sometimes it's nice to be with another person, with them live, asking those questions right then and there. So that's what we're trying to do with our workshop that, again, we'll be heading up for the second time this year. We do have quick fact start guides. What we did, we put together brief snippets of what each component of our ecosystem has to offer, and made that available. And then we continue to do testing and evaluation of new products so that we make sure we're staying modern and that we're if we have a need or a request or wants from the user community, what else do they want to see? We're going out there and we're looking for those products. We do have some limitations with that. I'm going to pass this next one over to Larry because he's going to talk about some of the challenges, and that's kind of associated with our testing and evaluation. So we can find these great educational tools, but unfortunately as a government, we know this, not all of them are accessible to us.
Thanks, Erica. So first and foremost, whenever we're trying to procure something, the first question is it FedRAMP approved? The FedRAMP process is not something that's trivial for vendors. I mean, it can cost upward of easily $1 million for them to get their offerings FedRAMP approved. The bigger the business, probably the less of a deal that is, but really it does take a long time to get approved. Network security, because we are in GovCloud, that's actually a DISA offering. And I'm not trying to get too technical, but there's a door in and a door out. The door in is not really usually the problem. It's the door out from information, where we kind of get bottlenecked sometimes. And we've had instances where DISA has either throttled our traffic because we are not a priority that we think we are, or in some cases we've had a complete failure and we were down for almost 2 weeks. So we are at a little bit of a disadvantage there as far as network management. Acquisition process, I think everybody in the government knows IT acquisition is it's a beast in itself. We have an IT procurement system that we have to go through to request to procure. They advertise, depending on dollar value, anywhere from 90 to 140 days for approval. Once it's approved, then we have to obligate the funds and then go through contracting. Okay, that is what it is. I'm not sure that's going to change. Management of training for privileged users. That's just managing who can do what in the system. Everybody comes in as a student learner, no matter where they're going, and then elevating their privileges appropriately for what they want to do. So that management sometimes gets a little bit difficult because, like I just discussed a little bit earlier, we're a system of systems, and sometimes the systems talk well, sometimes they do not. So it's really managing the permissions across the board into each subsystem. Minimal manning. So we have approximately 300,000 individual users in the system. As of right now, we have a relationship with NavAir. They do the operation support for the system. That's the IT guys that do the backside databases, some of the changes. We have a relationship with Marine Corps Systems Command, which is probably half a dozen folks, but ultimately it comes down to 9 people. That's myself, Erika, and 7 others that run the program for the Marine Corps. So we want to hire more, but with the budget the way it is, I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. We're trying, but minimum manning that's where we are. And the biggest one that we faced is cultural change. And I think anybody in the government organization that tries to make change understands the difficulty of a culture change. So first of all, it was, okay, we want to get all of your content digitized and put into an ecosystem for access. Okay, there was buy-in a little bit, and then the pandemic hit and suddenly everybody was very interested. However, the definition of digitizing content has been a little bit different. It's been everything from putting a Word file up to putting a PDF up to really getting down and dirty with the content and creating something that's very interactive. But that's been a slow change. Getting people, particularly instructors that have been used to standing on the stage and delivering the content, to understand that we're not trying to replace them or minimize them. We're trying to assist them. And then getting people to understand what the word e-learning means versus distance learning. Whereas e-learning is kind of wherever the content's needed, you can get to it. Instead of distance learning is kind of the fire and forget. You go and do it and come back to me when you're done type methodology. We see varying degrees of acceptance, denial, stalling, roadblocking, what have you. But those have been the major challenges that we faced over the past few years. So we're almost to where we would call our system a fully operational capability. We advertise that would take us several years to get to a full capability. As I mentioned, fortunately, our initial capability was right before the pandemic, so people realized, hey, this kind of works. But we get our requirements from higher headquarters, and a note on that is that we are still trying to work towards the ADL total learning architecture concept. This is just our implementation of it. We're going to continue to advance everything, integrate, tighter integration. We want to bring a wargaming capability. I know that within Marine Corps University, there will be a wargaming capability. So it's how do we get learner data out of those war games into our system so that we can get a better snapshot of what learners are doing, how they're performing. We're looking at integrating Okta in the near future. And then one of the biggest things that we're missing right now is a browser-based content authoring tool. So there's a couple out there. We've looked at Domino and a couple others for COTS products and Pearls, which is an ADL GOTS product. So those are things that will allow instructors to get in and create content and then get it out to those that need it easier. There is a small content creation piece within Moodle, and that does very well for instructor-led things. But say if you have an individual who's going to be onboarding and you want them to know, okay, here's the traffic rules for this base, then you can put that out easier. So we're just trying to look at how we can provide a browser-based authoring tool. And do I have any questions?
Looking, I don't see any right now. Do you, Russ?
Fran, yeah, I do. Carla,
Okay.
Fran has her hand raised. Fran from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So if you'll just give me one moment, I'll put my eyes directly on her. And she wants to ask a question. So we're going to promote her. Fran, I'm looking for you, Fran. And okay, here we go. I've got her. Fran now has a microphone. Please go ahead, Fran.
Unmute
If you'll
yourself.
just unmute yourself, Fran, and
all right, there I go. All right. So Larry and Erika, very nice presentation. Thank you for sharing what you're doing. I do have kind of an overarching question for you though. Understanding that a learning ecosystem is kind of an entity of component parts, what model did you all adopt to discern what component parts would be part of your ecosystem?
Good question. So, like I said, we had the initial asynchronous tool out there. So that's still kind of resident, and that's what we call legacy MarineNet. So with Moodle, that was kind of when we realized that we were not going to be allowed to contract with Blackboard anymore, we did some investigation as far as what was a capability that was similar to Blackboard at the time, and we wanted an open source tool. So that's how we came with Moodle. Some of the other ones were just we did investigation of what was out there in industry. and what was the best of breed that met our requirements. So, okay, we wrote up the requirements document, and we had MITRE in some instances. If you're not familiar with MITRE, they're a fully funded research and development organization. They're kind of like kind of a pseudo government organization that we leverage to do some investigation there, and we just tried to pick out what was best of breed that met our requirements. I know there's lots of other tools out there that do similar things, but what we have now is what really met our requirements. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. So I think what I'm understanding is if there is a tool out there that would meet your end users' needs, then you would adopt it, correct?
That's true, as long as it meets our requirements. And when I say our requirements, I'm talking about Marine Corps IT specific things, or other things that we've seen or heard from higher headquarters that are really requirements that are given to us. So
Functional requirements that need a technological support.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So thank you. Appreciate.
Carla, we have at least 4 or 5 queued up in the Q&A right now. Chris Kaplan has a couple that you might want to read, Carla. Or you can see them, Larry.
Yeah, I can see them and read them if you want, Carla.
Excellent. Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Chris, leveraged TLA standards across, I'm sorry, have you leveraged any of the TLA standards across your system? For example, sending XAPI statements from all systems to an LRS. We did procure the Veracity LRS on the backside, and that's part of the further integration piece that I talked about, so that we can weave everything together to get that good solid picture of what a learner is experiencing. And then your second question is, in selecting tools, did you find there were many options that leveraged the TLA standards? I would say that because the TLA standards are fairly new, I would say that they were familiar with them, but not necessarily leveraging them. The best we could do normally was say, hey, can you put statements out to an LRS? So yeah, that was a big one for us. So those were Chris's 2 questions. Let me know if I answered them or not. Let's see, anonymous attendee. What do you think are the best scenarios use communities? Okay, so we have 2 communities that have absolutely taken off. One of them is the ammunition officer community. They're in there sharing best practices, talking about SOPs, things like that. And the other one is our manpower administrators. They are in, and I see lots and lots of people joining those communities every day, and it's about sharing information, really. So when we give, what we do is we make whoever is going to be the channel manager, we make them take a course to understand the capabilities of that channel, so they can structure it how they want, and then they let people in they want, or they can invite people in that they want. So it's really kind of up to whoever wants the community as far as best case scenarios. I see it as, for example, in the manpower and admin folks, I see it as kind of a way to vet things. Hey, you know, this order says this, but the system works this way, you know, something like that. Or like Erika said, you know, we can link different things in there to where here's a document in the library, go look at this document, or here's a course in general administration, go take this course, you know, things like that. So I guess the sky's kind of the limit right now. And then next question from an anonymous attendee: should we refer to your LMS as MarineNet or the eLearning ecosystem, or are they interchangeable? Yeah, we're trying to rebrand a little bit there. So we call it the ecosystem or eLearning ecosystem. But when you go in and look at it, it says MarineNet eLearning ecosystem. So I think people are going to know what you're talking about, but um, but MarineNet is kind of like the old moniker. So yeah, we're moving more towards the eLearning ecosystem. Jolly Holden.
Mhm. Jolly is our executive director of the federal government DLA, Larry, and we appreciate him so much.
Sure. Did you utilize or have a partnership with OPM's USA Learning? So we started out when we transitioned with Blackboard to Moodle, OPM did do Moodle for us, and then we moved it all in-house. We found that if you, when we looked, everything comes down to budget, right? So when we looked at the cost of the pass-through between OPM and our relationship with NavAir, we found that the NavAir option was cheaper. So did we use it? Yes. However, we moved away from there. Let's see. And Chris, did I get
another one?
Yeah, that's the one about the TLA standards and the XAPI statements to LRS.
Right.
So I hope I hit them all.
You have so far, Larry, no problem. Can I just make one comment? I had the pleasure of being the video teletraining officer for the Navy for about 4 years, and I had the same challenges. Cultural change was exactly the same a number of years ago, quite a number of years ago. I can't say how many numbers of years ago, but it was. And I had the hardest time convincing people that they could make the transition from the instructor at the podium to an electronic delivery of course content, and that they could do it very effectively. And I just had so much hesitation. And my response was, it will work, it will work, it will work. I said that so many times in every given day, and it did work. And we saved so much taxpayer money by using, electronic media to deliver content faster to more students, reducing backlog for incredibly important courses that students would have to wait 6 months for to receive that information. So it is strange that we still face the same cultural barriers.
And it's across everything. I mean, education, medical organizations, corporates, and so forth. Erika, I'm going to ask you if you can show us around the ecosystem. We've got a couple of minutes and we can still continue talking. Larry, did I interrupt you? A thought?
No, I was just, I saw another question pop up. So
okay, go ahead and answer it.
Oh yeah, so it's from the anonymous attendee. Makeup of the team. There's one Marine officer, I'm supposed to have two, I'm shorthanded. And I have, let's see, so there's one Marine, there's 7 civilians and 1 contractor right now. And can enlisted IT Marines. I would love to have an enlisted IT Marine, simply for the fact that I honestly believe that more diversity is good, because you get old guys like me that have a certain way of thinking. You get younger folks like Erika that have a certain way of thinking, but more is better. So
And I'm not that young.
Larry, we have a former Marine on our board of directors for the federal government DLA. He runs our website. He is the most amazing person. His name is Chris Patek. When he watches the recording, he'll see and hear this.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, so that's the anonymous attendee. Oh, can enlisted IT Marines join your team? If you can talk to your monitor and we can work that out, I'd love to make it happen.
Yeah, maybe they can help troubleshoot our issues sometimes that we have.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So questions are popping up now. Yeah, Katrina has some comments about not a question, but adding on to a comment. Cultural change is a very real thing we're dealing with, but also having sufficient data to address concerns is critical. Yeah, that goes back to what Russ was says. the proof is in the pudding. Hey, this works, right? And I would say the data to prove that it works is that for 2 years while we were all at home, sitting, in our pajamas, it worked. We didn't lose any time. So the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, we stood up in that time. We stood up. We should tell them, Larry. We stood up. Virtual learning environment came about. The library and communities all came about during that COVID. And that was with just the 9 of us that, with the support right from the external. Russ, I wanted to comment too. You had mentioned trying to get around that cultural change. I tried to for a while as we were standing this up. I would pull out units that I noticed were like doing great things and try to highlight them. And we were doing a video podcast for a while, showing like, hey, this is what works. This is how they're using it. And I try to do that too with our Q&As sometimes when I come up and I try to do some demoing and just show like, hey, this is how others are using it. It's effective and it can be effective. And this is what you can do too. So I think, because you're going to have those people that are going to jump on board right away. And that's where I think the most help comes because they can see how it gets used. And I know I see it. There's a lot of questions.
That's marketing, Erica. We in the Navy, we call that marketing. So we took those champions that believed in us and we promoted them, not increasing in rank. Well, we promoted what they did and we gave them every kind of accommodation letters that we possibly could. And we used them to train others to replicate themselves. So and word of mouth, I think that's called really traditional marketing. So we definitely did as much of that as we could.
Let's take a minute and go through this, and then we can come back and answer some of those other questions. Erika?
Sure, yeah. So you're seeing AEM, our dashboard right here, our portal. That's our entrance. We have, as you can see, this carousel of articles. We highlight what's coming up. We got some courses. We did advertise that we were doing this webinar. You can see we're looking at standing up this Percipio learning platform. So this is a great way to catch attention, our articles. And then as we go down, we got our link to our self-paced courses, our link to our instructor-led, MarineNet video services, our virtual learning environment, our library, and then our communities, and then our way to support through the help desk. And this is where we've modernized, because before it just used to be on the left-hand side and it was a list of links that you would just click on. Now we're able to make it a little more modern and functional, and our self-paced courses, this is where users are going to come and enroll in those, maybe some annual training that they do on their own time. Then they can launch over to instructor-led, which is in our Moodle environment. And I'm doing a live demo, right? Fingers crossed everything goes well. But here we go, our instructor-led. So, you can see it's very well developed. I forgot, Larry, you were just looking at statistics, I think, recently. But there's a lot, like 300 and some at the category level, I believe. And I forgot how many, 150 some thousand users, individual users inside of Moodle. Going back over into our MarineNet video services. So we have some featured content that we highlight. And again, remember, this is user generated stuff, sometimes through an organization, but user generated that we can pull up. We also put our tutorials out there, or our processes of how to do things.
So Erika, if I'm a Marine and I'm stationed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for example, so I can log on to this and I can learn at 3 o'clock in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, anytime I'm ready to learn, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It is.
And then our library, very similar. You can look at your folders. We have all these different folders that are out here. This is how they would, request if they want to get their own folder system. Our virtual learning environment, that's our Adobe Connect. This is the only one that right now we have a separate login. We're still working on that single sign-in with COSO because we're waiting for them. They're actually upgrading to IL level 4. So they can have
Increased
higher security. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. So this is the only one that there's a separate login. So if I clicked here, I'd have to log in with a username and password. But the users, the attendees, sorry, the participants don't have to log in. They can come in as guests. So, and then we post, like I mentioned, we do our Q&As. We have the last 2 months out there, and then our last year's virtual workshop links. These are our recordings, because we have the recordings from those Adobe Connect sessions that people can go back and look at. And then I'll jump over to our communities. So again, this is our newest. You can see communities that are being stood up. I have a little bit of time, right? I don't know, Larry, should I jump into any of the communities, or you just want to see it? I'll jump into the virtual learning, right? Because I don't want to show anybody stuff that isn't public or whatever. But so this is, for example, one that I had created. It's so versatile. There's so many options. It's almost, I don't want to say it's overwhelming, but it can be. You can let it get overwhelming if you try to do too much manipulation, because there's so much to do. But like I've put out here tutorials, how to link to them, you know, new ways to learn about things, what's happening, you know, the new things, because Adobe has these custom pods that you can add. So I've advertised about those. It's a great way to advertise about new features within this for our community there. I think, and then of course we have a help section with frequently asked questions, and then how to get accounts. And this is accessible outside of the login, so users can come in and view these help questions without logging into the system. So that's a brief overview of the ecosystem. Are there other questions? I think I see some numbers up there. I don't know if there's any questions that need to get answered.
Thank you, Erika. It's an amazing system. You really like Adobe Connect, I can tell.
Well, I kind of helped get it stood up for our system, so yeah.
It's an amazing product.
I think they should be a sponsor of federal government DLA.
Oh, that's
Yeah, maybe they should.
Mhm.
There'll be other. I'm sure there are other government agencies would enjoy using them.
Okay, let's go back over. You want to look at the Q&A? Larry, Erika, anything there you want to answer?
Sure. Let's see. So Sean Miller, XAPI innovation testing pilots. We're using a FedRAMP LRS or what? So what we did was we, like I said, we had to be very specific in what requirements we were looking at. And it came down to, I think, 3. And then once we down selected and looked at all the offerings, we decided on the Veracity LRS, particularly because it had to be very modular, be able to have LRS that could feed LRS and some other things. Hope that answered that. What mechanisms does the e-learning ecosystem have to help it put relevant training in front of learners that might need it? That's an excellent question, and we're hoping within the next phase. There's the good thing about Adobe Experience Manager, which again is a kind of our portal umbrella, is it has several plugins that support kind of pseudo AI, so that students, learners, as they're going through content, they'll say, oh, you know, kind of like YouTube algorithms. Since you watch that, watch this kind of stuff. It allows us to do that. That's hopefully coming before too long. But we do things like annual training. You'll see that carousel. Okay, annual training coming new, or a new course is there. So we do that kind of advertisement. But we want to be able to, within the system, have it a little bit more personalized, and then be able to maybe send out emails or text or what have you to notify learners that, hey, there's something new. Let's see, Jolly, will any of our team attending iFest? Yes, I'll be there. Erika, I think, will be there, and some of the other folks will be there. So if you've got any questions, track us down. Are you able to access Precipio Learning events outside of their dashboard. Yeah, it's a direct link for us, and then when learners complete their training or learning, it's pulled back into our system. So let's see. Yeah, Chris, we're also wondering about how are we going to support deployables? Yeah, XAPI statements are very noisy, so we're also looking at implementing. Well, I'm getting way in the weeds here. We're also looking at integrating the ADL. No, I lost it now. But basically, it provides very specific LRS statements or expected statements on different types of content or what have you. Profile server, the ADL profile server. Yep. Let's see. Another one. Give you access to. I'm not sure about. The question is, will Percipio give you access to all of the XAPI statements outside of CMI5? I don't know yet. We're just now getting Percipio in place.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our time together. Thank you so much, Erika and Larry. It's such a pleasure to work with you two, and thank you for this extraordinary presentation. Russ, thank you again for Zoom. We appreciate everything that you do for us too. And we all want to thank you for being with us today. That concludes the webinar. Thanks for being with us. Good